Welcome to Ideagen TV. We're ecstatic today to have with us Charlotte Keenan, Global Head of 10,000 Women, along with Seanice Lojede, Global CEO, Group CEO of Blue Flamingo. And what an incredible opportunity to hear stories about 10,000 women in the incredible program at Goldman Sachs. Here we go.
The Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women program has been a game changer for my business. There's never a time where you should pass up an opportunity to learn. My name is Seanice Lojede. I am the co-founder and group CEO of Blue Flamingo Digital Africa, a digital marketing and advertising agency that's based out of South Africa, with physical locations in Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. I just really wanted to create an environment in a business that was different from the kinds of environment that I had been in, where there was no support, they were not enabling. And I just said, look, there must be a different way to do business. I think the most difficult thing about running a business is actually confronting your own weaknesses. I realized that your team cannot grow any further than you as a leader. What drew me to the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women program was the combination of personal leadership learning of who you are in your place as a woman, combined with finances, forecasting, goal setting, how to manage your team. If I was to pick the most valuable things I've learned doing an annual budget as opposed to like a month-on-month budget, we get so busy as entrepreneurs just trying to keep the ship afloat that we don't have the luxury of introspecting. So don't imagine you have all the answers until you do this course. You will definitely come away from it having learned so much.
Seanice, what an incredible video. Obviously very impressive. And can you tell us a bit more about your business? And wow, I'm always fascinated by origin stories. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to become an entrepreneur.
Absolutely, George. My origin story literally is an origin story. I started my first business when I was 8 years old, selling my neighbor's guavas. But don't worry, I gave him a fair cut of the proceeds because I'm ethical like that. And my sister and I started our business 11 years ago in Uganda, a very remote country in Africa. And we since, blood, sweat, and tears, the entrepreneurial journey hasn't always been an easy one. But I think we really wanted to create a business that was, fun, that was respectful of the people that were in it, that really added value, and at the same time created, a space where people could come and enjoy themselves. And I think through that, the business expanded and grew. And 11 years later, here we are in 5 African countries. And we've pivoted to digital education and training. We create content as well. It's not been without its challenges. And quite honestly, the Goldman Sachs program came at a time where we just needed to build on what we had created in a way that could be sustainable and scalable and create more long-term value. But all in all, the journey started with just a girl who just dreamed. And along the way, there was a lot of necessity, George. So I was employed for quite a while. And I realized that if I had to continue putting myself and my sister through school, that I would absolutely have to find an income stream that was a bit better than what I had at the moment. And that's how I started Blue Flamingo.
There's an incredible opportunity to be inspired here with our global audience. And what a story, Seanice. I mean, that is just awesome to be able to dream and then bring your dream to life. And that's what you've described. And a moment of applause here for Goldman Sachs for recognizing the incredible opportunities that these businesses can provide to their communities and the impact that can then, emanate from that. And so turning to Charlotte, welcome as well.
Thank you.
how does 10,000 women look like now as compared to 2008? And what have you learned along the way?
Well, George, thank you for having us today, and also it's such a pleasure, Seanice, to be back with you. The very last event that we did for 10,000 women before lockdown was Seanice and I in Johannesburg together for our Africa conference, and what a different world we are in now. So, George, yes, absolutely, 10,000 women. We launched it in 2008. The idea being to support female entrepreneurs everywhere with access to a world-leading, world-beating business education, with mentoring support and with capital. And we worked with business schools across the world in over 50 countries to train, support, mentor these extraordinary women, just as you've seen with Seanice, and in many ways helping to unlock the latent potential of the world's female entrepreneurs. Skip forward to where we are now and what we've learned. Look, I think the most amazing thing has been, frankly, the individual stories. Seanices is one of over 10,000, and that's been a truly humbling and truly extraordinary experience for us at Goldman. It's been an absolute privilege. It's a journey that we've evolved. Along the way, we introduced a capital component in partnership with IFC and the World Bank, recognizing that female entrepreneurs need access to capital. And then we realized just a couple of years ago that we wanted to make this available to women anywhere, wherever they may be, at whatever stage of their business journey. And that's when we took the program online and met Seanice as our inaugural growth fellow through that program. So it's been an absolutely incredible journey that we are still on and still working together with these amazing women.
You know, it really sounds like it's an incredible journey. And who would have thought that just a few months ago, we were in January and we were looking at 3,500 odd some days to 2030. As you both know, Ideagen has a virtual backdrop of trying to develop awareness, ultimately to help achieve the global goals, those 17 global goals of the United Nations. And here we are a few months later, and who would have thought where we would be? A global pandemic. We have a global crisis underway. And speaking of this, current crisis, and needless to say, it's having an outsized impact on small business leaders and businesses in general, literally across the planet. And by the way, this may be the very first time in the history of the world where the entire planet is experiencing exactly the same thing. We have a common enemy in this virus. There have been lockdowns and stay-at-home orders across the entire planet and every corner of the globe.
Yeah.
Seanice, how have you pivoted and perhaps most importantly, innovated your business strategy to ensure that you stay relevant to your clients, especially during this time?
It's been a really interesting time, George. And to be honest, we're still figuring that out. What we did in the first couple of months when we realized that lockdown was going to affect not just our business, but our clients' businesses and more, we went through kind of a curve. And we had a lot of clients calling us saying, we need to cancel our contracts. We need to, and the interesting thing was we had to drop our hats for a moment and put on the most empathetic hats we could, even though we ourselves were worried and concerned about our own teams. And I think that's what will get small businesses and big businesses through this is empathy for one another. Right now, we're building what I like to call transitional behaviors. And we're hoping that those transitional behaviors will take us to transformational behaviors. Some of the transitional behaviors we've put in place is involving our teams in literally every decision. Right now, we're talking to our teams about whether we should pay half salary for now until things get better, whether we should go back to the office. We are not making unilateral decisions anymore. And it is a strain on the team because they have to take on sort of a more managerial role. But it's amazing the sense of camaraderie and just coming to the table that everybody has. We've taken that same approach with our clients. Our clients are now not just, there's almost like that barrier that's been removed between us and our clients, where we're talking to them like stakeholders. We're talking to them like we're in this together. What do you need us to do? How can you support us so we don't go under, so we can continue to support you? We've been very blessed that we're in the digital space. And right now the digital space is the one area that everybody has really been putting emphasis on as being able to continue business's strategy, whether it's e-commerce, whether it is online marketing. So we've been very fortunate that our business hasn't taken that much of a hit, but we still have seen some major changes and some major shifts. And it's very interesting, but what we've done is we've actually charted our trajectory for the first 3-4 weeks, and we're building a little graphical story of the things that we did and how we've managed to sort of navigate this time, because we think it might be able to help other small businesses to figure out what to do in their businesses as well to help them stay afloat. So we're all trying to figure it out together, but it's really about collaboration now more than ever. We've collaborated with other agencies where we've taken on some of their business because they've been adversely affected. And we're working together now rather than competing. And in a weird way, I think that this is a beautiful thing. It doesn't mean that I wish we couldn't go back to normal, and I wish the pandemic had never happened. But we are definitely, if I can be so bold to say, we're making lemonade.
Oh my gosh, you just used a lot of my vernacular. Lemons to lemonade, co-opetition. I mean, these are really critical elements in resiliency.
Yeah.
The companies and organizations that survive situations like this seem to be those that had some strategic foresight built into their operational planning. And I think that's what Goldman Sachs and 10,000 Women helps businesses do, is they help you develop the strategy to create these partnerships in good times as well, so that you understand these core capacities before anything happens. And then, God forbid, something happens like it has, you're able to pick up the phone and understand what either your competitors do or what other types of businesses and other sectors do. Because at Ideagen, we've been talking about cross-sector collaboration for a very long time. And what you see now, you see it in government, you see it in business, you see it in the NGO world. Those businesses that had forged relationships and partnerships with other cross-sector type businesses, or even within their own sector, and took the time to do that, can now pivot in a way that helps them see around the corner. And no one can really see fully around the corner, but you have an idea that through this, and what you just described is just incredible, and really a perfect roadmap for every business, large and small, like you said, across the planet. Charlotte, 12 years ago, when Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women first launched, the situation was very similar to what we're facing today. Crisis and uncertainty, etc. What is different this time? And how do you want to help women during this difficult period of time?
Well, firstly, I'm going to create a case study out of Seanice's business to make available to all of our other businesses throughout the network. Look, there is a huge amount that is in common with what we went through in 2008. Huge uncertainty, likely global recession, and small businesses the world over are feeling the disproportionate impact of what's going on. However, as the pandemic hopefully comes to an end, who knows what the new normal will be? There's a huge amount of debate and discussion around this. Are we fundamentally accelerating trends that were already happening around digitization, greater use of technology, different working practices, or is something more fundamental shifting? But two things are clear. One, in this backdrop, as in 2008, small businesses the world over are the bedrock and the cornerstone of economic recovery. And that's why we decided to support them then. And it's why we're continuing and doing even more to support them now. And that's why we're, secondly, expanding the launch and the reach and the access of 10,000 women online so that more female entrepreneurs can do it. And that, with all the other resources and support that we're bringing from Goldman Sachs, but as you've mentioned, coming together with our peers, with governments, with the nonprofit sector, to support business owners is absolutely fundamental for us to rebuild our societies.
And that I agree with you. First of all, I think a case study on Seanice's business and what you've done together would be incredibly helpful for so many. I mean, contextualizing what she has gone through with her business. Forget about the fact that she's, operating in so many different countries, which obviously has its own complexity, but the ability to pivot so quickly. We have so many different CEOs and global leaders that are talking about the acceleration of their planning. Those that had a bucket list of items that they were looking to achieve have now accelerated in many ways, and they're achieving things in 6 to 8 weeks that they had on their long-term planning for 3 to 5 years.
Right.
So I'm sure, Seanice, this is what you're going through right now and what you just described. And by the way, this online training now available to women across the planet online, profound on so many different levels, and I applaud you personally and professionally for that, is incredibly important. And so, Charlotte, tell us a little bit more about the online course. What will participants learn from that?
Yeah, so we took a decade of in-classroom learning, worked with a number of academics around the world from many of the different countries in which we've been working in, and basically took the best of. So in many ways, it's a best of and highlights of 10,000 women. It's highly practical, it's applied, and bite-sized. And in many ways, the easiest to describe it is like a mini MBA, so that a user can dip and dive, take a course on leadership, cash flow, finance planning, or take all 10 modules, which are now available also in different languages, and work through the full element of how to plan, build, grow, reimagine your business. And then those individuals that complete all 10 modules become a member of our global 10,000 women alumni community, having access to extra education, support, thought leadership. So it's been incredibly powerful and an amazing resource for women who, let's face it, are often, at home. Most of us have been, stuck at home in lockdown, and it's really designed in a manageable way that when you need something to help you or help you rethink or help you redo your cash flow, this is a grounding base for you to be able to pull your business through at a not just at a time like this, but in ordinary days as well.
Well, and it takes an extraordinary sense of multitasking and an ability to multitask to be an entrepreneur. I obviously know that personally and professionally, but it's just amazing to see. So how does this all fit within the larger measures Goldman Sachs is taking to help empower women-owned businesses across the planet and within the broader functioning of the organization?
Yeah, so I'll talk particularly about what we've been doing recently, because I think it's been such extraordinary times, and as you say, we've accelerated things that were on the bucket list for 5 years hence. And George, it's really varied as well considerably market to market, depending very much on the state of the lockdown, what our graduates needed, and what local governments and so forth were offering. So for example, in the US, with our sister program, 10,000 Small Businesses, we launched a $500 million loan facility In the UK, we've launched a brand new online course to help businesses to repivot, reimagine their businesses. Across the world, we have made our Goldman Sachs employees available to help mentor and coach our small business graduates, and that can vary from someone in investment banking helping rethink a new financial plan, all the way to someone just listening. And I'm sure, as Seanice would say, it's a lonely, challenging, and difficult time for many of these entrepreneurs. So it's consistently globally been a focus of a huge amount of support. We've been working with these businesses for 12 plus years, and we want to be sure that they are here at the end of the crisis, stronger and repositioned to do even more, and we'll be there as long as it takes.
Well, what a commitment by Goldman Sachs. I mean, clearly it's heartening to hear, and really just amazing to see the leadership. I'm a strong believer in leadership, and it starts at the top and it sets a tone. And I really love what Seanice started with on the empathy side of things. I mean, I've heard in so many different interviews, leaders talking about empathy. And in one interview during this summit will be with Kate Johnson, the president of Microsoft, who you'll hear just an incredible discussion I had with her about empathy. But, in terms of what we're seeing today, and Seanice, what you're going through, what you've been through to start your business and to end up in this place where you're plowing through a global crisis in a very interesting and difficult, but yeah, on some level, connective moment where you're looking at the totality of the impact. Seanice, how are you helping your business? How are you resilient during this time? How are you pushing through this global situation?
When I think about it, I think that when you spend a lot of time worrying about your problems and thinking about yourself, it makes any crisis worse. When you think about how you can be helpful, when you think about other people other than yourself and put yourself in their shoes and what they're going through, you quickly realize that a lot of people have it 10 times worse than you do. And it builds a spirit of gratitude, and a spirit of gratitude insulates your mind against depression, against depression and gratitude just can't exist in the same space. And I think a leader's most important asset is their mind. If you can get to a Zen-like place where you can begin to understand that everything that we experience and go through, we give it meaning, then you're able to see opportunities where other people don't. And I think this is the true superpower of an entrepreneur that we need to learn and teach and hone. It's the ability to see how to be of value no matter what it looks like, what the landscape looks like, whether or not you feel like you're in Alice in Wonderland and down is up and up is down, which is how I feel a lot of days these days. But I remember that my team is looking to me. So what is getting me through this and what is helping me through this is really that when the worry starts to creep in, I literally pivot and I switch. And I start to think about how I can help my clients, how I can help other business leaders, how I can reach out. I don't reach out and start with, oh, I need this. I reach out and start with, how can I help you? What are you going through? Let's talk this through. And I've noticed that the opportunities start to come when I start to teach my team to approach it from that angle as well. So we've literally had daily stand-ins where we don't ask the question, how do we get out of this anymore? We ask the question, who can we help today? And I think that's been a real game changer, because when I did the online Goldman Sachs program, one of the things they teach you is self-leadership, is how to not feel so alone. And I think the way to not feel so alone is to develop a post-heroic leadership model. You can't be the heroic leader who's got all the answers. And post-COVID-19 is teaching this so poignantly that actually we don't have all the answers. And we need to start looking to people who are looking to us to co-create the world we want to see. So I think, I'm sorry I can't give a 10-point, this is how you do it. I can only speak from my own experience and say that for me, this is what has helped me build resiliency and has most importantly helped me teach that resilience to my team, alongside exercise and yoga, of course, and lots of prayer.
Well, that is just a simply profound answer to what was a fairly simple question. I mean, it goes to mental toughness as an entrepreneur. It goes to what you mentioned as the Zen-like, state that you have to be in when you're running a business in a multi-country business like you are. And, your poise and leadership is remarkable. It's evident during this interview, and it's a perspective, right? And I think when you have the basic fundamental knowledge that is being taught through the online program, the 10,000 Women program, you then have the confidence and the ability to think beyond just the day-to-day. And what you just articulated with the ethos of helping others during this time, as we've seen across the planet, first responders and
Right.
businesses and restaurant owners and hospital workers and police and fire and EMS and everybody else coming together to help their communities during this time selflessly, I think is remarkable. And that's what you're describing. And what an incredible lesson. What an absolutely incredible lesson. You're even reminding me today that, you know what, we need to start with how do we help others?
Yeah.
Right, Charlotte? I mean, that's
Exactly.
what a message. If that was your only message, I would say this is an incredible interview. How do we help others? And by the way, you're getting the fruits of that ethos because people recognize that you're authentic, that you have empathy. And these are things that if you have a focus on and you build them into the business model, then it can be part of the everyday, organizational structure and strategy. And so I'm at a loss for words, not often at a loss for words, but I see this as an incredible. When you said you don't have a multi-point strategy, you actually have a one-point strategy, which is in this moment, in this global situation, help others.
Yeah. 100%.
What a lesson.
100%.
So Charlotte, what are you seeing from other women entrepreneurs in your network as they navigate the impact, the across the board impact of this global pandemic?
Wow. I mean, it's been absolutely sobering, I think is the first thing that I would say. Right from we have women that we have worked with and been through the program in Wuhan. So, right in the very, very early days, seeing those businesses pivot. There's one that comes to mind, an amazing woman who has a florist and, very quickly pivoted that to be an e-commerce company. And that's stories, reminiscent of stories that we've seen now throughout the world, from South Africa to Peru, India, in all of the countries in which we work. And in those early days, we surveyed all of our businesses to see, how they were coping and how they thought they would cope. And look, the results weren't pretty, and the stats weren't good. Over 50% at one stage said they didn't think that they would survive 6 months. And now we're 2 months on from that. And actually things are much, much better than I think we originally thought. And that's because of individuals like Seanice and many others like her. And what we see above all from this community of entrepreneurs is resilience, is innovation. They're helping each other. They're reaching out. We've seen a number of businesses start new ventures together. One producing, 3 businesses came together to produce hand sanitizer. Many are helping produce PPE kits. So again, it's that, and this is what I think distinguishes, these entrepreneurs is an ability to innovate, to see what's around the corner, to be prepared, to move quickly and be nimble. So as it stands now, yes, it's extraordinarily difficult, and there are many stories of teams being smaller, redundancies, very, very difficult times. But we're ultimately optimistic and hopeful. And the community, the thing that I'm most touched by is actually that our community of businesses is much, much stronger. It was strong going into the crisis. It's much stronger standing where we are now. And that's because business owners are reaching out to each other, connecting with each other, wanting that support and wanting that contact. So hopefully we continue on this trend.
Well, exactly. And what an incredible example we have with us today in Seanice, in looking at the exact example of someone who's been through the 10,000 Women program online and has the fundamental understanding of looking beyond just the immediate. We're in a global crisis. We all understand that. But how can we come out better, stronger, faster, perhaps bigger in any of the businesses that we're running, and especially a woman-owned business, which I can tell you from personal experience, my wife runs her own, and she's beginning the 10,000 Women online program. And, she feels empowered by what she's learning. And the ability to have that network is also critical, because it's not easy. By the way, none of this is easy.
None of it.
Anyone who tells you it's easy, I can tell you firsthand, it's not easy. And so I just stand in awe of what Goldman Sachs has done here to make a concerted effort, a focus on these women-owned businesses across the planet. I mean, I can say it, but we have someone here who's been through the program who says, yep, I can see past this. I can see a better future, perhaps. I can see a more resilient business model. And that, to me, is everything you need to know about what 10,000 Women is and stands for. And so, Seanice, a question. What are some of the biggest myths about being an entrepreneur? And how do you try to combat them?
I think some of the biggest myths have been busted, and that people say, oh, I want to work for myself. Actually, everybody ends up having a boss. My bosses are my team and my staff and my clients. I work harder as an entrepreneur than I ever did when I was employed. The other myth is that it's easy. You've mentioned that, George. It is not easy. It can be very lonely. It can be a struggle. I think entrepreneurship is a business that is actually a personal growth engine that's just camouflaged or disguised as a business. Because the things you will learn about yourself from running a business are like nothing else. And I think the biggest myth for me, if I can bring it back home, especially to Africa, and specifically, I mean, our business is in Uganda, it's in Nigeria, it's in Kenya, it's in Rwanda, and it's in South Africa, which is where I am based right now. And I think the biggest myth for me on this side of the planet is that entrepreneurship for us is a luxury. George, it's not. For me, it wasn't. It was a necessity. If I didn't get into running my own business, into creating value and being paid more than I was getting at my job, I would not have an education. My sister would not have an education. My brother would not have an education. So I know that sometimes it feels like entrepreneurship is a luxury, but for many of us, and my experience is that it is just sheer necessity. It's the need to survive.
Incredible. And, so that, again, that perspective is the critical piece to it all, is having an understanding that it's not just a luxury to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the only way.
Yeah.
And again, having the tools of a program like 10,000 Women is of critical importance, because better than anyone, Seanice, you have to know finance.
Yes.
You have to understand the supply chain. If you have a supply chain type business, you have to understand who your partners, who will your vendors be? How do you select a vendor? Oh, and by the way, the best part, hiring.
Yes.
HR. You have to be the HR manager. You have to be the marketing manager. You have to be the finance manager, and all of the rest. And if you don't have the tools in place, gosh, it's going to take a lot longer to figure that out. And that's the whole point of this, is that you're being armed and equipped to be able to scale anything, any business. And now you're in a position to help so many other women-owned businesses and businesses in general.
That's it. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yes.
Seanice, what is the best piece of business advice you have ever received and that you can share today with our global audience?
Wow, I've received a lot of really good business advice. I'm an avid reader, so I think that at any one point, I've been inside the minds of great people. I mean, that's the one way to do it, right, is to read. But I think the most amazing piece of advice I've ever been given actually came from Goldman Sachs. I had the absolute privilege of traveling to New York, and I was surrounded by all these people. And to be honest, I was dumbfounded. I was like, how will I even speak in front of these amazing people that I've only ever read or heard about? And a gentleman stood up and said, never listen to advice. And I was a bit taken aback. I was like, huh? And I think that played into an ethos that I've always had, which is I cannot advise anybody because I am not them. They will never, their situations can be similar to mine in so many ways, but they'll never be identical. So I think that, ironically, I'm going to say never give advice, and I'm going to give advice. I can hear that in my head right now. But I think it's that if you discover who you are, what you're good at, and your purpose in the world, you'll always be valuable. And this is, I think, how to run good business as well, is to truly understand yourself, because when you understand yourself, you understand the value you bring to the world and the thing that you do so well that nobody can do better than you. And I think this is what brings joy. This is what keeps us resilient. As an entrepreneur, you're going to hit so many roadblocks. If you don't at some point have an intersection between loving what you do and being able to really create tangible value, you will burn out so quickly. And I know I mentioned necessity, but necessity comes with actually identifying that unique thing that you can offer the world that nobody else can. And that's when you'll be able to actually create value that even outlasts you. So that's the advice. It's really dig deep and figure out who you are.
Again, at a loss for words, but I'll try. I'll try. You just defined, so many things like purpose, and passion. You cannot be an entrepreneur without passion, but passion will only get you so far if you don't have the tools necessary to drive forward, to understand how you can accelerate growth, how to hire. Where do you begin to hire people? Where do you find these people? How do you find the right skill sets? How do you even build the skill sets necessary for that specific business? Oh, and by the way, again, how do you find the key partners that you'll need to make it happen? And so, but what you see in your business, Seanice, is your passion. And that combined with the process that was provided by Goldman Sachs and the advice that you've given. Look, I always say, we have a conversation, my wife and I, about they. We all know they say you should do this, or they say you should do that. And you always have to wonder, who are they?
They.
who is the they? Let's not mistake the process, a process for successfully running a business, with the fact that believing in what you can do is also critically important. So when you marry those two things, it's limitless what you can achieve, right? That passion, purpose, and then understanding the process. So I am just, you just define that passion and purpose piece that's so just incredibly important for everyone. Thank you. Charlotte, in developing countries, 70% of female-led small and medium-sized businesses cannot acquire adequate funding. I have a tough time reading that. It's a tough time reading that and understanding that. In many cases, any funding at all. They can't find any funding at all. How can we change that, and how might the 10,000 Women program help to tackle this global issue?
Great question, and I noticed Seanice doing a lot of nodding when you said that. So maybe worth also getting Seanice's experiences as well. But that's exactly what we found, and through our own experience, through a huge amount of research, the women were coming to us saying that they needed help with access to capital to be able to grow their businesses and get to the next stage. So that's why we launched the partnership that I mentioned at the outset with the IFC and the World Bank to create the first ever gender-specific financing opportunity, our Women's Entrepreneurship Opportunity Facility. And that's designed to do exactly that, to help women access the finance that they need to grow their businesses. And look, there are two parts to this. One, we've already talked about it at length. It's giving women the tools, the knowledge, the skills, and the confidence that they have to, build their financial forecasts, to understand their cash flow, to build a funding case, to project into the future what they need for their businesses to grow, and to be able to do all of that. And also to have the confidence that they can go to their local bank, present that business case, often if it is something, and bearing in mind that in many societies that can be difficult. And therefore the other part of that has us been working through the IFC with many local banks around the world to skill them up and to educate them and to help them lend on to female entrepreneurs. So through that process to date, we've mobilized over $1.76 billion to female entrepreneurs across emerging markets around the world, helping over 72,000 women-led businesses. So those are results that we're very, very proud of, but obviously still a long way to go, and even more work to be done, particularly as we come out of our COVID pandemic.
And what an incredible opportunity to applaud that work and that leadership, because it does, start with leadership and a focus, and focusing on this issue of funding is also critically important. So now you have the idea, you have the passion, you have the process, but you have no funding.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So all of these things are critically important. And I'll go back to the fact that, again, none of that is easy. Nothing is easy. But the fact that companies like Goldman Sachs are stepping up and saying, hey, this is important. This is something we need to focus on. And just recently with, opening up 10,000 women online to anyone. I mean, that's what it takes. Now, anyone on the planet can take the course, right? And have the fundamental skills necessary to get to that next step, and understanding, okay, here's why finance is important, or here's the finance process, and here's where I should go to begin requesting funding, to begin, living out this dream of entrepreneurship. So I think that's all critical. Seanice, can I ask you a question? And that is basically, if we were, just imagine reading an article 10 years from now, a news article.
Right.
What would you like it to say about women entrepreneurs?
Wow. I'd like the headline to say 80% of flourishing businesses managed by women. I'd like it to delve into the fact that women don't feel the need to ask for permission to be involved in conversations of finance. I don't know a better finance manager than a woman who runs a household. Do you know how far we can stretch a dollar, right? When it comes to planning, to management, a lot of the skills that are absolutely crucial in business are a beautiful harmony between men and women. So that headline obviously is ambitious of me, and it's just saying, I would like to see that we are living in a harmonious society where men and women are equal contributors. Different is important, but equal, right? So I'm not saying that we're the same. We have complementary skills, and I think that it would be amazing if I could see women in science, in STEM, coding. I live in my digital business. Over 60 to 70% of the young people who are coders and who are involved in coding are men. And I want to change that. I want to have more women, but it starts at a very young age. It starts with education and all these things. So if that article could just see consistently that the strides made for women are across the board, whether it comes to education, believing in ourselves, the kind of jobs that we want to do, and the kind of, societal acceptance for the things that we want to do over and above raising a family, which is also very noble and very, perfect. That's what I would like it to say, that there is no ceiling anymore. We shouldn't even be talking about a ceiling for women to shatter. That should be a thing of the past. That would be amazing.
Well, that's an incredible way to conclude what is just a profound interview with both of you. What an incredible series of insights that really take your breath away on so many different levels. To have Charlotte Keenan, global head of 10,000 Women, along with an incredible leader, Seanice Lojede, Group CEO of Blue Flamingo in Africa, is just is profound. You've been through the program, you've seen the impact, you keep your passion intact, you're still a passionate entrepreneur, but now you have all of the tools in the toolkit, literally, necessary to help continue and grow your businesses despite the global situation. And for that, we're grateful, and I know our global audience is grateful, and will take away, without a doubt, so many different lessons. I want to thank both of you for the incredible insights and inspiration. What an awesome interview. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. And thank you to Goldman Sachs.
I echo that. Thank you, Goldman Sachs, and thank you, Blue Flamingo. And we want to see it all over the planet and every country. Let's make that happen. And by the way, let's help achieve the global goals by 2030. We laid out this vision. Let's have that vision be, we achieve the global goals in 2030. And like you said, there is no glass ceiling. Men and women are running businesses in an equal way and for equal impact. And there are no barriers. What a goal that is. Thank you so very much.
Exactly. Thank you.
George. Thank you, Charlotte.